I never thought I'd end up in a place like Milford. It was one of those small Midwestern towns you drive through on your way to somewhere else. Faded billboards advertising local diners, rows of identical ranch-style houses, and a main street with a hardware store that looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s. I'd moved there after my divorce, needing a fresh start away from the city noise and the constant reminders of what went wrong. The job offer at the local community college teaching English Lit seemed perfect. Low stress, decent pay, and a chance to disappear into anonymity. My new house was a modest 2-bedroom on the edge of town, backing onto a stretch of woods that the realtor called serene. I unpacked my boxes slowly over the first week, savoring the quiet. No neighbors blasting music at 2 a.m., no sirens wailing. Just the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hum of a train passing through. The first odd thing happened on my third night. I was in the kitchen, making coffee, after a long day of syllabus planning, when I heard a soft knock at the back door. It was after 10 p.m., and the woods were pitch black beyond the porch light. I froze, cup in hand, listening. Knock, knock. Not urgent, just polite, like someone stopping by for sugar. I peered through the window but saw nothing. No silhouette, no car in the driveway. Maybe kids playing a prank, I thought, though the nearest houses were a quarter-mile away. I didn't open the door, just turned off the light and went to bed. The next morning there was a small handprint on the glass pane, smudged like a child's, but too high up for that. I wiped it away with Windex and chalked it up to the previous owners. Days turned into weeks, and Milford started to feel like home. I made acquaintances at the college, colleagues who invited me to barbecues, students who lingered after class to discuss Hemingway. I even adopted a cat from the shelter, a tabby named Whiskers who curled up on my lap while I graded papers. But the knocks kept happening. Not every night, but often enough to unsettle me. Always at the back door, always soft and unassuming, I'd check the peephole, flip on the floodlights, but nothing. No footprints in the dew-soaked grass, no signs of disturbance. I mentioned it to my neighbor, old Mr. Harlan, who lived down the road. He chuckled, his weathered face creasing. "Woods got their own sounds," he said. "Critters, wind, maybe even echoes from the old mill." The town was named after an abandoned lumber mill in those woods, shut down decades ago after some accident. I nodded, but it didn't sit right. One evening, after a particularly exhausting lecture on Gothic literature, ironic in hindsight, I came home to find Whiskers hissing at the back door. Her fur was puffed up, tail lashing. I laughed it off, scooped her up, but then I saw it. Another handprint, this time on the inside of the window. My heart skipped. Had I left the door unlocked? I checked, bolted tight. The print was small, delicate, like a woman's or a teenager's. I wiped it away again, but that night the knock came louder. Knock, knock, knock. I grabbed my phone, dialed the non-emergency police line, but hung up before it connected. What would I say? Help, someone's politely knocking? Instead, I installed a cheap security camera from the hardware store, pointing it at the back porch. The footage was the first real clue that something was wrong. The next morning, I reviewed it on my laptop. At 11:47 p.m., the motion sensor triggered. The screen showed the porch empty. Then a shadow flickered at the edge, too quick to make out. The knock sounded clear on audio, but no one was there. I rewound, paused, zoomed. In one frame, just for a split second, there was a figure. Pale, indistinct, like a person caught in fog. But the night had been clear. I showed it to a colleague, Sarah, over lunch. She squinted at the screen. "Probably a glitch," she said. "These cheap cams do that." But her eyes lingered a bit too long, and she changed the subject quickly. As fall deepened, the leaves turned crimson and gold, carpeting the yard. I started avoiding the back of the house after dark, eating dinner in the living room with the TV on for company. Whiskers grew more agitated, scratching at the door some nights, meowing plaintively. Then one weekend, I decided to explore the woods. Maybe there was a trail, kids camping out, something explainable. I bundled up, grabbed a flashlight even though it was midday, and ventured in. The trees were dense, oaks and maples twisting overhead, blocking out much of the sky. About a half-mile in, I found the old mill, a crumbling structure of rusted metal and rotting wood, vines choking the walls. Graffiti covered the doors, teen stuff mostly, but inside, amid the debris, I spotted something odd. A small shoe, child size, caked in mud but relatively new. Nearby, a faded photograph, half buried in leaves, showing a family from maybe the 90s, mom, dad, 2 kids. The girl looked about 10 with a shy smile. I pocketed the photo, feeling like an intruder, and hurried back home. That night, the knocks escalated, not just at the door, but at the windows too. Tap, 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 like fingers drumming impatiently. I barricaded myself in the bedroom, phone in hand, but the signal was spotty. Whiskers bolted under the bed. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps inside the house. Soft, padding like bare feet on hardwood. My blood ran cold. I hadn't heard the door open. Grabbing a baseball bat from the closet, I crept out, heart pounding. The hallway was empty, but the back door was ajar, swinging gently in the breeze. I slammed it shut, locked it, and called the police. 2 officers arrived 20 minutes later, flashlights sweeping the yard. They found no signs of forced entry, no footprints. "Could be the wind," one said, but his partner looked uneasy. "Heard stories about these woods," he muttered as they left. "Kids gone missing back in the day?" I didn't sleep. The next day, I drove to the library in the next town over, digging through old newspapers on microfiche. Milford had a dark history I'd missed in my haste to move. In 1992, a family vanished. The Hargroves. Parents and 2 children, last seen hiking near the mill. Search parties found nothing but the father's wallet and some scattered toys. Rumors swirled. Cult activity, runaway, even a cover-up by the mill owners. The photo I'd found matched the description of the Hargrove family. The girl, Emily, had been 10. I felt sick, staring at the grainy articles. Was someone playing a sick joke? Or worse, back home, I nailed the back door shut and pushed furniture against it. But the disturbances didn't stop. Objects started moving, keys from the counter to the table, books rearranged on shelves. Whiskers disappeared one afternoon only to reappear hours later, covered in dirt, as if she'd been outside. I set up more cameras inside now. The footage showed shadows flitting across rooms when I was out, whispers on audio, too faint to decipher. I confided in Sarah, who suggested I see a therapist. "Stress from the divorce," she said gently, but I knew it wasn't in my head. One night as I lay awake, I heard a child's voice from the kitchen. "Let me in." Clear as day, pleading. Desperation drove me to Mr. Harlan again. Over coffee on his porch, I spilled everything. His face paled. "The Hargroves," he whispered. "Folks say Emily's ghost, Wanders those woods, knocking on doors, looking for her family. She was the only one they ever found traces of, a shoe, some hair. But the body? Never. He wouldn't say more, just warned me to leave. That evening I packed a bag, planning to crash at a motel, but as I loaded the car, the power cut out. Darkness enveloped the house. From the woods, I heard rustling, branches snapping, footsteps approaching. I barricaded in the living room, flashlight beam shaking. The knocks came from all sides now, doors, windows, even the walls, then scratching, like nails on wood. "Let me in," the voice whimpered, closer now from inside. I swung the bat wildly in the dark, hitting nothing. My phone died despite full battery. Hours passed in terror until dawn broke. The power flickered back on. Everything was normal, except for the scratches on the inside of the front door, small like a child's hands. I didn't leave that day. Instead, I researched more, obsessed. Online forums mentioned similar hauntings in Milford. Knocks, shadows, missing pets that returned changed. One poster claimed to have seen Emily. Pale girl in a sundress, eyes hollow. I set traps, salted the thresholds, like some superstition I'd read. But it only got worse. Nights blurred into paranoia. I'd wake to find handprints on mirrors, my breath fogging them to reveal messages. Home. Whiskers started acting strange, staring at empty corners, hissing at me sometimes. One stormy night, the climax came. Thunder rattled the windows as the knocks pounded relentlessly. I huddled in bed, covers pulled tight. Then the bed creaked. Something climbing up. I felt cold fingers brush my ankle. Screaming, I bolted upright, shining the flashlight. There she was. A girl, translucent but real enough. Dress torn, face gaunt. "You live in my house," she whispered, voice echoing like wind through trees. I ran, stumbling through the dark, out the front door, into the rain. But the woods seemed to close in, branches grabbing like hands. I made it to Mr. Harlan's, pounding on his door until he let me in. He didn't question, just handed me a shotgun and called the sheriff. But by morning when we returned, the house was quiet. No signs of intrusion, no girl. They dismissed it as a break-in or hallucination. I moved out that week. Back to the city, therapy sessions booked. But sometimes in my new apartment, I hear a soft knock at the door late at night. I don't answer. I tell myself it's the neighbors, the wind. But deep down I know she's still looking for home. And in a town like Milford, or anywhere really, who knows when she'll knock on your door next?